I'll say that we are recording this,
Brilliant.
and that's better, right? Okay, so Jenny, lovely Jenny. I met Jenny through the gathering, which was an event that was run by Raf and Liv Akanya. We met last year. It was back in May, I think April, May was the
Yeah.
event. And I'll be honest, I thought she was a bit bonkers when I first met her because, as you can see, she laughs at everything. She really does. She's just joyful Jenny. But I had the privilege of having a session with Jenny probably a couple of months after the gathering. And it started off a beautiful friendship, as they say. So this is, I'm hoping you're going to love this conversation as much as Jenny and myself will. So let's start off with how, Jenny, did you find out about your higher self? So for me, for example, I've been working with guides, etc., through Reiki for over 20 years. So the leap to meeting a higher self wasn't so huge for me. Were you sort of aware of your higher self or any of that concept? What kind of called you to that work?
I'd heard of this notion of a higher self, but that's pretty much all it was to me, a notion.
Right. Okay.
I was most drawn to the work of Abraham Hicks. So I was familiar with this term non-physical. I was into the manifesting and I was like
Yeah.
into the feeling good. I mean, knowing that joy is my thing, you can see why I would be so drawn to that
Yeah.
um, way of doing life. And so I used to listen to that a lot. And it was actually when it wasn't until I went to an Abraham Hicks event and it was on the plane ride home. It's just such a great synchronicity story. Like you couldn't have planned this really, but literally sitting across from me on the plane was this girl who I'd yet to meet, but she stood up in front of me as we were leaving the plane, and I noticed she had a band on because it was a 2-day event, so you had to have a band. And I was like, "Oh, you were at the Abraham Hicks event." And we started chatting, and she turns out she lived like literally, of course, just literally down the road from me. And I was
Brilliant.
like,
Yeah.
"What's happening? This is so amazing!"
Yeah.
And she had been on the Believe course with Liv and Rafa Kanya.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah. So
um,
that's how you found out about Liv and Raf as
well,
well.
that was really how I came to the whole world of what this was. So I
Mm-hmm.
sort of had an awareness of this idea of non-physical energy, and non-physical.
Mm-hmm.
I knew about law of attraction, and I was aware of energy and vibration, and I understood, well, I thought I understood vibration, but I didn't really, to be honest. I mean, I always think of this, little did she know. Like I thought I knew it all, but little did she know what was coming. I mean, it was amazing. So basically I signed up for Believe Online,
Okay.
back when that was still a thing. And that sort of initiated me into the world of the higher self and connecting to it. And on that course, then I was told my higher self's name,
Right.
and I connected with her.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because when you look at the 52 of us who were on the gathering, who are now all kind of spreading this wonder out into the world, all of us have come in very different ways. I mean,
Yeah.
there's quite a few of us who've come through one specific person, then
Yeah.
other people have had synchronicities like you've experienced. And what I find fascinating is that all of us have come with a willingness and an openness to learn more. I mean, I know for myself in my story, I'd been asking for about a couple of years. I want to know more. I want to understand more. I want better results for my clients. I want to see them heal and get better. I want this to be far reaching as well. And I think that's probably true of most people who they may not have known that they're going to disseminate this into the world, but they came with a thirst for knowledge. Would you
Yeah.
agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think what was unique about this particular course was the variety of people on it. Like you had doctors on it, you had people who were into energy modalities, but there was dentists. Like there was such a variety of backgrounds from the people that came.
Right.
Like, and I think the reason for that is because there was a truth in it that was really resonating with all of these people, and we could all feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because when I think back to joining that Believe online course, like I nearly didn't like. I knew I needed to do it somehow. I think I had this kind of soul knowing, this kind of almost, oh, I really want this. But then I was terrified. I was like, what's happening? Why am I so scared?
Yeah.
And then because I knew that this work was going to make me show up in a way I've never had to in my life. And it was just a little bit of a scary thought. I was like,
yeah.
See me?
Yeah. And that knowing actually is really interesting as well, because it's like a feeling you can't resist, isn't it? It's just like almost like a compulsion. I know when I was looking at other courses that other people have run, I would not feel that excitement. But when I kind of knew about the gathering, I was very resistant to doing that work. But I also found that I in my head and in my body, I could feel, you need to be on this, you need to be on this, you need to be on this, and it's quite an irresistible compulsion actually, isn't it? And I think for a lot of people, these nudges show up as that gut instinct of, you've got to do something. When someone looks back at something in their life and they go, I don't know why I did that or said that or phoned someone, but just knew I had to, and this was the outcome. So yeah, okay. So your lovely higher self is Siobhan, who I think is brilliant because she has shown up as a very swashbuckling female pirate, which I love. And I have to say to anyone who's watching this, she even has the frilly shirts and everything and the thigh length. She's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. What do you think? Was it easy for you to develop that relationship with her, first of all? And what do you think has been like the hardest thing? We've had a few people in our group just do their first higher self connection course with me. And I think some of them have struggled a bit with their receiving. And a few of them have kind of struggled with the trust side of things, trusting that they're going to receive. So what do you think for you? What's it been like knowing Siobhan and meeting her?
Great question. It's been such a journey because I've definitely gone through those emotions of just self-doubt and the lack of trust and like, am I making this up? I can't count the number of times I've had that conversation with myself. And it, in my journey, I even worked one-to-one for 6 months with Liv and Raf. So I had support on tap. I could ask them anytime something came up. But even then, I still had to build that relationship with my higher self by myself.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to feel her, to notice when it was her, because I mean, truthfully, I think I was receiving her all the time.
Right.
But it was quite a difficult thing to really feel her and to sort of, and there's hence all the questions of, is that actually real? Because I couldn't really feel that the truth of it sometimes, but I also knew it somehow. I think that soul knowing would come back to me. And there were too many coincidences. There were too many things that sort of that I knew she was there, but I just didn't feel like I would see people talking to their higher selves like, oh, I'm getting this from my higher self, and oh, I'm getting this, and I was kind of like, oh, that'd be nice, but it felt like it wasn't me.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned was that it sometimes it's just your inner being type. So my inner being type is what's called compressor.
Right.
Some people are large inner being types. And there's other types as well, apart from that. And you can learn more about that in Journey of the Soul, Liv and Raf's recent book. But the main thing is that if you have a large inner type, you just feel more. So you actually receive in a different way to me. So my way of receiving is I'm not necessarily going to feel loads. I actually received quite cognitively. And I think that's actually really challenging. I'm also very visual, but it took me a while to get to the visual.
Right. Okay.
And so when it's cognitive, you're kind of like, am I what? Who's that? Is it me or is it her? So I think one of the best things I did was I did a 30-day challenge. And doing these activities to connect your higher self, to build that relationship with them really helps. So one of the best things I did was cooking. I'll never forget it. cooking experience with Siobhan. And basically the challenge was you had to get 5 ingredients. And listen, if you're watching this now, I challenge you to do this at home. You can only use 5 ingredients. I didn't count like spices and things and ginger. It's not an ingredient. So
5 main ingredients, not
yes,
just 5 ingredients.
Yeah.
5 main ingredients.
Yeah, exactly. 5 main ingredients. And I ended up cooking like this kind of risotto thing, except instead of adding stock as you would in a risotto, I added coconut cream. It was so good.
Yeah. Those kind of challenges are really great because I'm at the moment, so for a little while now, I've been asking Athalia, my higher self, to help me with my eating and to just kind of change up some of the things that have become entrenched in my eating habits. So, for example, I do quite like in the morning a couple of rich tea biscuits with my cup of tea first thing, but it's really not good for me. So we've been changing that, but what she's been getting me to do is have an egg every day, a soft boiled egg. For that, it's probably been going on for about 2 weeks now. And I noticed I'm snacking less in between meals, you know, that fatal time between 4 and 6 when you would normally kind of not really doing that. And she can really help you, I find, guide you to the food that's going to really suit your body.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Right? It wasn't just delicious, but it was also exactly what my body needed. Like exactly what my body needed. And, you know, I was in the supermarket then a couple of months later and I ended up buying radish. And I've never eaten radish, I think, in my life. You know, and it's just so funny. And then I later found out that the reason I needed radish is because it was helping me to balance my hormones.
Right. Okay.
And so, you know, these little insights you get, but and sometimes it's so simple. Like last night I was making pasta and I often get a jar which has the flavors in it and I didn't have it. And she's like, oh, you just need this and this. And I was like, but that's like, is that enough? And I was just a tomato sauce and some other sauce. And I put the two together and it was so good.
Yeah.
Simple.
So Athalia's got me basically cooking pasta sauces from scratch. So now we kind of buy tomatoes, fresh tomatoes. It's a bit long-winded. And I said to her, is there a cheap version? She said, well, you can buy a ready-made one, but you add some fresh tomatoes to it. And that's a bit quicker. So if I haven't batch cooked, that's what I'm doing actually, just to kind of, but it's absolutely delicious. And my whole family is benefiting because I'm eating in such a guided way. They're actually getting lots of nutrients cooked in a way that's full of love as well. So that adds
the vibration of it.
The vibration of love. It's amazing.
You're just reminding me actually, because I'm just remembering the first time I connected or received from Siobhan consciously, let's say, because you know your higher self is with you your whole life. So you're always getting those intuitive little nudges. But I actually felt like I grabbed a pen and I felt my hand moving. So I started drawing. So I just got a page out and just let that flow. And it was like a lot of movement and it was really fun to allow it to flow. And I was like, ooh, this is cool. Like I really enjoyed it. And I think that's a really key point when it comes to that kind of thing, is that lightness, just not getting too in your head about it and not being overthinking it. And like, I wasn't really trying to figure out what I was drawing, to be honest. I just went with it. And then afterwards I was like, okay, no idea what that means, but that was fun. You know? And I had to get some guidance from someone to help me figure it out. But eventually, once you develop the relationship then with your higher self, it does help you to understand yourself better and understand them better, because eventually what I got to is like, you know, one way to do that is to do it with your left hand, but I didn't always do that. And what I started doing was just actually getting colors out sometimes and being creative that way. And I drew little things and they were really simple, but the energy of them, like I drew a very simple flower, a daisy, but the colors in it were like my soul colors, and the energy of it felt amazing to me. And I really, like, it was, like I said, a very simple flower, but the energy of it was peace and knowing. And I was like, oh, lovely. That's something to do with my soul, you know?
I love that, because I did the non-dominant handwriting, and then once it would flow, I'd switch over to my normal writing, just because I could keep up better, basically, and I received quite cognitively.
But do you receive, have you ever like art pictures, or is it words?
So mainly words, occasionally it's pictures.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
amazing.
so I don't really. I remember about 3 or 4 years ago, I used to sit with my iPad and I used to paint on there, and I used to get pictures of like the back of angels. So it's the back of someone, so I could see their wings and the color of their hair and what they're wearing, but not their faces ever. So that was sort of probably the most, and that was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, actually. In the last year, it's been mainly about writing, and but a
That's
lot of it
kind of
is,
an involvement then in a way, isn't it?
yeah, it is, because also I find writing just comes to me really quickly and
Okay.
easily. So for
Yeah.
me, that's easier.
Yeah.
Lately, what's been happening is she doesn't even want me to write. She's basically, when I'm connecting into her in my meditation, like today, I was connecting in,
Yeah.
and she just basically gave me a whole load of information that I just needed to know. And
Okay.
it's really interesting because I have said to her previously, I'm not sure I'm going to remember all this. And she's
Yeah.
like, no, you'll remember it because I'll
I
keep
was just
reminding
thinking the
you.
same.
And I'm like, oh, this is like your personal memory bank working for you. How fantastic. So, yeah, I can relate to that feeling
That's
of,
trust, Sanjana. Like,
ah,
that's trust as
yeah,
well. You
yeah,
know, like I think the need to write it down, I've definitely been like, oh, I need to write it
yeah,
down.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's like, no, actually, it's okay. They can
yeah.
bring you that, but it's trusting that you will receive
Yes.
it
And
again and
I
trusting that
like,
you can.
yeah, like you, I definitely struggled with, am I going a bit mad? Is this a cult? Am I being taken for a rather expensive ride? You know, all those kind of things. I had all those doubts as well. But what I couldn't ignore was the knowing that you've mentioned, that feeling of this is like the start of an adventure that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
This is going to be something that's going to be, I'm going to learn a lot about myself, not just about her, but about myself and what I'm capable of.
Yeah.
And it's going to bring me some satisfaction. I kind of knew all of that in a nebulous way. I didn't know, oh, you're going to feel more satisfied so concretely. I just knew in a nebulous way, this is going to be good. You should do
But
this.
it was like you knew enough. You had enough of a carrot
Yeah,
to
yeah,
pull you in. That's
to pull
all.
you in.
That's what
Yeah,
you needed, right? And
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So, how do you think this relationship with Siobhan has really helped you? Because, you know, it, I mean, I know it's helped all of us in our own ways, but how's it helped you particularly?
Well, it's changed my life, to be honest. Um, it's it's an interesting question to answer, I think, because I was even trying to reflect on that a bit. How has it changed my life? Well, I suppose the first thing to say is like I feel she's been instrumental in helping me to let go of the past, let go of low stored vibration.
Mm-hmm.
She's helped me to understand myself better. Um, she's sort of given me hope when I felt hopeless. She's given me
Yeah,
love when I don't feel it. Like it's hard to even sometimes it's hard to put it into words like
yeah,
how she's helped it. Because I also have free will and I also choose my life and I choose how I show up. But choosing to interact and become consciously whole with Siobhan,
mm,
it sort of opened me up to being more myself than I've ever been,
yeah.
to living life really. It really feels good. It feels really good to know that you have a higher self there that
I
unconditionally loves you.
would you say, I mean, I feel more like myself, but also I'm braver than I used to be. I'm more willing to put myself out there in the wider world and show up as myself and not be necessarily feel constrained by other people's opinions of what I'm doing, or
I love that.
feel
Yeah, yeah.
like I need to fit into other people's ideas of what I should be like or not like.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant that you said that because you know when I first tuned to Siobhan,
Chanel.
okay, when I first tuned to Siobhan and actually tried to see her energy, I got that similar thing of the pirate imagery that you spoke of,
Yeah.
and the energy I got was kind of this badass, but actually that's not her energy. The more I've tuned into it, it's not actually that, that's actually fearlessness.
Right.
And it's this kind of strength, but with it's so much love, and it's like, and it's a massive part of what I'm aligning myself to as well. So that fearlessness, that sense of I know who I am, but I'm also not afraid to be who I am, and I'm going to show up with who I am. And that was a massive thing for me to overcome, because it's almost like coming out of the spiritual closet. I had to kind of manage the expectations of others and let go of any of that. And Siobhan was instrumental in helping me through that all the way, as well as my physical friends.
Yeah. I mean, that's something all of us within the gathering have lent on each other as well, on a physical level, because there's your connection to your higher self, which is this wonderful energy, but we still have to be human on the other hand. And it's a bit of a balancing act that we have to learn to kind of ride. That's
sure, you'd go mad if you didn't have all of these people around you sort of going, no, we're going mad right along with you. You're like, okay, let's go. So
I mean, I think we're both in agreement that this relationship is incredibly rewarding, and it's not just in terms of the things we've described about feeling more fearless, or how we're showing up as more true versions of ourselves.
Do you know what it is? I feel like it's like this. You get your own guru. You get to be your own guru. You get to have your own knowing of what's right for you as an individual in every single moment, because we're so unique. And this is always the thing that's bugged me about when I used to engage in the personal development industry and look to whoever it was for wisdom on this or that, or even diets or food or anything like that. And you're trying to find who's the person who knows the most about the subject, who knows the most. And actually, your higher self knows what's best for you. Like, no one's going to say, oh, radish is the best for hormone balance. Well, actually, radish just might not be the best for your particular situation when it comes to hormone balance. But it was for me.
And so and it is this. Yeah. So I used to have a habit of, if I didn't know something, I would buy a course.
Okay.
And that stopped. That has almost totally stopped now. What's happening instead is, if I don't know something, I go inward first and see what the guidance is, and then I may or may not, often not, choose to go external for advice. And that, I agree, you become your own guru, because you have your own wisdom that you're connected to, that you can pull in, right? And that's invaluable, actually. That really is.
Absolutely. And you feel the truth of it for you, because when sometimes the guidance is to go and watch something that somebody else has done. Sometimes that is the right thing to do, because what they're saying is going to resonate with you. And the way they've put it together is, your guidance is to do that. So it's not like it's you need to shut off. Sometimes there is a course you're guided to take,
absolutely.
But ultimately, it's empowering. It's such an empowering thing to connect to your higher self, because it's like, it gives you that real confidence that that knowing that what's best for you, and they're there to sort of nudge you in that direction all the time, and they're constantly doing that. So you really get to receive those nudges much clearer when you consciously connect to your higher self, and you're much more aligned to who you are, and you're much more on your own path. In your own way. So
cool.
It's awesome.
So another question I had for you is, what new abilities have you sort of triggered or learned about since we began this journey? I know of one of them which has helped me tremendously, so I'd love you to talk about that. But and what could you share with the public? Because one of the reasons I want this conversation with people from the gathering in this group is to show the members of this group what's possible, because we're all unique. We're all here for a specific reason. Our unique energy is needed, and we are here to do something, all of us, on a small scale, medium scale, and a large scale. Some will do it on a world stage, some will do it in their community or just within their family. But whatever it is, it's pivotal and important.
Absolutely.
So, and I know all of us within the gathering have learned new energetic abilities we didn't necessarily know we had. So let's
Yeah,
talk
it was
about some of
astonishing to me. I
yours.
was like, oh, I can do this.
So let's talk about some of your ones.
Well, the first one that I learned of was the Akashic readings, and it was just the right time. And it was really cool the way it happened, because I was supposed to get my own Akashic reading. Literally, what happened was I got, instead of getting, usually it's about an hour or so where you get into this Akashic reading, and what happened was the baton was passed to me, and I was my turn to start doing them, because that was part of, you know, my journey. And
Just
so I have to do my
describe,
own Akashic reading.
yeah, describe for the guys what an Akashic reading is, because I don't know if
Oh
everyone
yeah.
knows what one is. So yeah.
So I think that the place to start with this is, because Akashic reading is essentially, it's about looking into past lives, but you've kind of got to understand that you actually only have one life. You actually only have one physical life on this planet. And so then it kind of gets a bit like, well, what's the past lives then? And so just to clear that up, because this is leading edge insight on this topic. It's brand new, coming through now in a way, as there's so much exciting leading edge insight coming through. So when it comes to past lives, the way it works is, when you're created, your soul is created, your higher self and God are hanging out together, and your soul is being created, and you're created in the image of your higher self. And then God adds something else to your soul, which makes you uniquely you. But what that means is you have this energy signature, which is really similar to your higher self. And so when you go into an Akashic reading, your higher self has been the higher self of lots of other souls before you. And they all have this similar energy signature to you, because that's how they're all created in the image of your higher self. But they're all unique and they're all different. And so you get to understand what it is, you know. So because you're connected to your higher self, I suppose you have like, I have joy. Joy is a big part of Siobhan, and it's a big part of me. I am different to Siobhan. We're not exactly the same, but we're very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that connection, you know, and you can go back and see what other lives she's been the higher self of. So
But
that's the first
you
thing.
can also see where you're similar with Siobhan, that aspect is enhanced in you as well with your connection, isn't it? So, you know, like for you, joy, it literally radiates out of you. You're always laughing. I rarely know you not to be laughing and smiling, because it's literally radiating out of you. And I think that's something that people should kind of, if they watch this back, think about what is their dominant trait that people comment about them, and that's likely to be the common trait with their higher self, right? Because
and it's not, just to say, it's not always just, it can be lots of different things. You can get words like, people have come up with things like shining, or resilience, or like the different types of love. It's so, like, joy is one emotion, so don't assume it's just that emotion, is what I'm trying to say. Like, it's going to be unique to you, and you'll feel the truth of it, and it's something you can connect to your higher self with and ask about. But it's also something that I do in my Allowing Your Truth sessions, is I help people to connect to that, and I help them to sort of understand that. And I love doing that. It's so much fun helping people to understand that stuff, because I'm here, like, Siobhan is big on truth, and she's a truth speaker, and has been in many different lives that she's been the higher self of. And it's no different in this one. It's the same for me. I am about truth. And with truth, you have to sort of understand it. You have to come to your own knowing of your truth. And so I think with the joy, it lightens things up. And when you lighten things up, your ability to understand actually improves.
It flows
and it gets you into a flow, as opposed to a force of, I have to know what this is. It kind of helps you to flow towards it instead. And so that's one of these things that I feel like that's what I was made to do, to help people understand. And so Allowing Your Truth sessions are all about helping people. I think that's kind of what I did with you. We kind of
so with me, it was kind of, I don't really know why I signed up to just do a swap with you, and I just felt like it was a nice thing to do. And I mean, for me, it was amazing, because what you triggered in me was an ability to see other people's higher selves. Like,
that was amazing as well for me, because it was just like, it was just like flicking a switch, and
Yeah.
suddenly you were just like boom, and you could see all this stuff, and I was like, okay. It was amazing. I couldn't believe it. It was so amazing. Like I was interested in doing it to explore, you know, because sometimes I was getting something out of it as well, but little did I know what was going to come. Like, you gave me all of this information on a situation that had been happening to me, and you gave me so much clarity on it, and it was brilliant.
Yeah.
And so there was a real beautiful exchange of energy in that.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's that what's it called, that session, allowing your truth session? Yeah. What I loved about it was that, like you said, it was a flow. There was no force to it. It was, and it flowed to where it needed to flow to. So we didn't have a set target. We weren't like, hey, let's see what abilities we're going to have. We were actually like, let's just kind of come together, let's do our process, see where it takes us, let's connect to our higher selves, let's see what they want to show us. And so for me, that was like the first ability that kind of came through with my higher self really clearly, that I can see other people's higher selves. And actually it's evolved to the point now where before I had to ask permission, now I can often see people's higher selves as soon as I start talking to them. If I focus in, I can. I don't obviously connect to them to talk to without permission, because that would be rude, frankly. That would be rude. But yeah, that's the other thing, is our gifts evolve as well. So we start off in place A, but we keep evolving the more we practice them. So just go back to, so do you think like doing an allowing your truth session and then doing an Akashic reading is a better way, or are they independent? Or, and just talk a bit more about the Akashic records, because we kind of went off on a side
we did.
as always with us, we went off on a side track.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it depends on where you are. I do think with an Akashic reading there's a right time, so it does depend on where you are in your journey. So you could be ready for an Akashic reading now, and I would tune in and ask your higher self, and if you feel a yes, then book it in and contact me, and I can tune in and see, because I have to get a yes from my team before I can do an Akashic reading.
Right.
So if you're not sure about doing a Akashic reading, if you're still trying to build that connection with your higher self, it does help to have a sort of allowing your truth session in the interim. But it, you know, always be guided, flow to what feels right to you, and you'll feel drawn to it, and that soul knowing we spoke about, you'll feel it. And so I think with the Akashics, it's just even explain what it actually does. What the purpose of it is to align you with your soul contract. So it kind of gives you context for where you are now and where, you know, where you could go. So usually on average you vision maybe 2 or 3 lives in an Akashic reading. And sometimes it's just an energy that comes through. Sometimes you get a guide. So one of your past lives actually becomes your guide for your current life, which is amazing, because they've such a similar energy signature to you. It's really easy to connect to them. And then sometimes you get abilities come through. Sometimes all of that comes through, and sometimes only one of that comes through, and it's different every single time. You know, when it's just an energy, sometimes that's exactly what's needed. I had one client who had this idea before she had the reading that she was going to get this notorious past life and this notorious past life, and she had this notion of what it was going to be, and so all they gave me was just this energy. And I had to just explain it, and because they really wanted her to feel the truth of the energy, and to tune to it, and sort of let go of this kind of need for it to be this or that, you know, to let go of any preconception of what it might be. And like your higher self could have had thousands of lives. So like, which ones do they bring? They only bring the ones that are relevant to this lifetime right now. So for example, I've had people who you know, are you here? Like, so there could be the case that you get a past life where it's a book you haven't written that you're supposed to write in this life. So you might get a guide for that. Or it could be like there's something you didn't quite get to finish in that life that could come through for this one. But equally, it could just be about an ability. And you get, like, you know, I've had people receive beautiful imagery of their abilities. Like they get things. Sometimes it can be a headpiece. It can be something they hold. It can, and then
How lovely.
really cool. It's really fun
Yeah.
to discover, and it's such a joy to do these readings because you really get a beautiful insight into people. Like I get to feel these things about a person, and that's another thing about an Akashic reading is because, and what's unique about this sort of Akashic reading compared to what you might have heard other people who aren't awakened or not connected with their higher self is I actually go to the Akashic holdings with my higher self and with my main guide, Archangel Richard. He's the gatekeeper, so to speak, of all of the library, the Akashic library records. And so it means that I really feel it. I go there and I feel it. So it's not just being relayed through my higher self. It's me feeling it. And so the person I'm reading for really gets to feel it too.
Right. So what I really thought was interesting is that someone can come to you for a reading, but your team could go, they're not ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's quite unusual because normally when people book a reading, they expect a reading, don't they? So have they ever given you a reason for saying no, not yet? I mean, because it would be a not yet rather than a
yes. Oh, no. Always a not yet.
Yeah.
It's not happened that often, and you know, sometimes people come to their own knowing about it. Like I've had people contact me and then kind of go, oh, actually, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this right now. I've actually had that happen on a few occasions. But if it does, it's usually that it doesn't feel right to them. And if I had to tell them not yet, it's usually just about the right time. They don't feel like it's the right time. And there could be a myriad of reasons for that. It's going to really depend on the individual. But usually, you know, if you're coming to me for a reading, it is fine.
Yeah.
You know, more often, I rarely have to say no.
Yeah, because I haven't had a reading with you, and I've kind of said to you, yeah, it just doesn't feel right yet. And I've kind of, I can feel it moving in the direction of, yes, I'm going to have one, but it's not quite there yet. It's not quite aligned to where I am. And I think that's partly because I've got a lot going on in my physical life. And whenever I get my reading, it's going to have an impact that I'm going to need to focus on, right? So I find that really fascinating that it's not an automatic yes, because it really shows that timing is important, because so that whoever receives the reading can make the most of the information they're given. And
it's really like aligning you to your truth as well. So they, you know, if you like, if I do a reading, I've done readings, I did one reading once, and the person was kind of not quite ready and like I was getting stuff for them, but it wasn't flowing as much. And part of the reason was because where she was in her journey, she just needed to flow to her own knowing. And they didn't actually want me to give lots of stuff to her at that time. It wasn't really, so I gave her enough to push her into sort of wanting to find out more and to get her into the next step. So that's what I received for her. But it's, you know, some of these sessions are so, like, they're so vibrant and you get so much about the person. I mean, sometimes I've had one session where this person, I've received so much about her and it didn't resonate with her. And that was kind of, we were both kind of going, whoa, okay, so what happened there? And what had happened was she was just in a place where she was experiencing a lot of deny energy. So she wasn't, it was the right time for her to have it, actually.
Yeah.
And a couple of months later, we had a conversation about it, and she was like, oh my God, I totally understand it now.
Yeah.
And it was just brilliant for that to come full circle, because she needed at that time, because it was actually helping to push her through the deny energy. And it was just because it was quite, there was a lot of different energies coming through that were sort of abstract. But then it just made sense to her as time went on, and the more she grew into herself, and then she was kind of like, I'm getting it now.
Yeah. You touched on something actually that I think is really interesting, and most people aren't aware of, is that our higher selves don't always give us the information we're asking for. And some of that is about because they want us to make our own discoveries. Some of it is about, I mean, my higher self who we frequently have a little shouting match, me and my higher self, because she frequently goes, "You already know that." And I'm like, "But if I knew it, I wouldn't be asking." And she's like, "But you do know it." And I'm like, "I really don't know it." And we have a lot of conversations along those lines, less so now because I ask less. I tune in first and wait for some knowing now. I've kind of learned the hard way. But I think that's also interesting, is that your higher self and your wider non-physical team, actually, they try not to overwhelm us with too much information, because as humans, we are conditioned to the how, the what, the when, the why. And actually, when you're focused in on that, you're going back into your head. You're not dropping into your heart and you're knowing, are you? You're kind of being more ego-led rather than heart-led,
Yeah.
emotion.
It's and especially if you've done that for most of your life, it's like a habit, and it's kind of a shift to sort of feel into things and to
Yeah.
trust it. It's a big thing about that trust as well. And
Yeah, yeah,
really building that relationship with your higher self. It takes time. It really
okay.
does.
Yeah,
But I mean, I love doing Akashic readings. It's just such a joy to
yeah,
feel a person's energy in that way. Oh,
yeah.
it's so exciting. I can't wait to do it for you.
So before we kind of sign off, there's one thing I want you to talk to the guys about, which is, I mentioned to them that you're Joyful Jenny to me. In my head, whenever I think of you, I think of Joyful Jenny. I don't think of Jenny, I think of Joyful
I
Jenny.
think a few people do that.
But you once said to me that there's something, a quality to your voice that ignites joy in people who hear you. Can you explain that a little bit to them? Because I think that's, we all know people who invoke feelings within us when we meet them. Some people make us feel safe, some people make us feel, "Ooh, no, stay away from me." But and in your case, it's like, this joy that you exude is very attractive, kind of should draw people to you like that. But just talk about that a little bit before we kind of finish off.
I think it's a really interesting thing because it's not something I mean, when I went through, like, before I was connected to Siobhan, I was kind of aware of it. Like, I knew I had an ability to uplift people
Right.
just through my voice. And it was something I didn't pay that much attention to. And then when I started to understand myself a bit more and, understand the aspects of my soul energy, like big part of my soul energy, my state of being is joy. So
Right.
it's actually a part of my soul. And so I just think it's when I'm high vibrational and I'm, in this love labeled place that I'm in, then that flows naturally from me. So I don't, in some ways, I'm not really sure how to explain the joy in my
Right.
voice, apart from saying it's just who I am.
Yeah.
I know it's there, and I suppose, what's interesting about it is learning about that and understanding that about myself. Like, before, I worried that the joy, it was too much,
Right.
or that it would trigger other people and they'd be like, why is she so happy? And I've actually had that happen. So I suppose I had some low stored vibration, like,
Yeah.
in my body about that. But now that I've released that, I'm kind of, it sort of learning about myself was like, oh, of course. And it was like
Yeah,
an
that makes
acceptance thing.
sense.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
that's who I am. So I
Yeah.
don't need to worry about how it impacts people. I just have to do me, and that's it.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. What a perfect way to end on. I just have to do me. I love
Yeah.
that. So, what I'd like you to do is just tell everyone how they can contact you, because you've got a page on Facebook, haven't you?
Yes, I do. It's allowingyourtruth.com. And, well, sorry, Facebook.com/allowingyourtruth.
Yeah.
Facebook.com, presumably.
Yeah.
And then my website is allowingyourtruth.com.
Lovely. And will you put the link in the video underneath?
That would be better, I think, because I obviously can't say it.
Given Siobhan's obviously decided you've spoken enough now, and now we need to stop. That's fair enough. Okay, Siobhan, we get the message. But if you could put anything in, if any of the guys who watch this on replay have any questions, if they could put that underneath, and then maybe if you have time, you could just come in and answer any questions. That would be great. And I just want to say thank you very much for coming on for a conversation in my group, the Higher Self Connection Collective. It's all about connecting people to their higher selves and understanding that there's so much wonder out there when you connect to your higher self. You just start seeing things in a completely different way that's filled with just joy and abundance and happiness and positivity. It's kind of like Abraham Hicks on steroids, really, is how I feel.
It is the next level. It is the
Yeah,
next level.
it is the next level. So thank you very much again for coming on, Jenny. And
Thank you for having me.
and for all of you who watch it on replay, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. And as I said, any questions, pop them in the comments, and Jenny and I will keep an eye on them and come back to them. The only thing left to say to you is next Monday, I've got another Higher Self Connection course starting. So scroll in the group, you will find the link to that. If you're not sure, come and chat to me. I'm available. And yeah, hope to talk to you all soon. Take care now. Bye.